So yeah, I mean, you guys are in the thick of your recruiting right now. Just after you finished your seasons, we were just talking before we hit record that you know it's anxiety inducing and stressful for kids. It's same for their parents, but also for you guys. And maybe you guys can talk a little bit about Julianne. Maybe you can talk about why it's so stressful for you. Maybe not necessarily for obvious reasons as well.
Yes, I would say I think the process in general can be really overwhelming at times too for all parties, right? For coaches that are finding a pool of players that fit their needs, one, like on the field, and finding the right fit for kids, that fit within their culture and that want to be a part of their culture. But then the same thing for the families and the kid as well, right? Like trying to find a place that, they feel like they're going to have an impact on the field and what kind of impact they have off the field, and how does academics play in the role of that, big schools, small schools, football schools, non-football schools, far away from home, close to home, right? You're trying to navigate all of those pieces. Of course the financial piece comes into play and stuff as well, and so it can be overwhelming with a lot of different over information. How do you narrow down those schools? Like what are kind of your top reasons to narrow down schools? But it's the same thing, that coaches go through and stuff as well. And it can be overwhelming or stressful or a time crunch for, programs at all different points and times. I think every program hits some sort of point where it's a time crunch and you've got to put deadlines on kids. I hate doing that, right? I want to find a kid that really wants to be a part of being here, and I want them to, make that decision when it's comfortable and right for them. However, how do you navigate that with also trying to like fill a roster and, not pass up on, kids, or you finding being able to fulfill and fill your roster, and not put kids on timelines and stuff. So there's a lot of different things that, I'm learning and going through right now, jumping from D3 to D1 with, the scholarship landscape of that and stuff. But I do think that it's overwhelming in general across the board, and can be. And how do you take that overwhelming piece out of it to help them make, decisions?
Yeah.
Jamie,
Yeah. I mean, she hit it right on the head. I kind of try to make it the least stressful process as I can. I give a lot of control within the recruit. But sometimes that gets like kind of bites us in the butt a little bit, because I don't put deadlines on an offer kind of thing. Because I want somebody to make the decision that's best suited for themselves. So sometimes it does, we take the brunt of that. But at the end of the day, I want somebody that wants to be here at CNU. So again, if it takes them, however long it takes them, we will be patient with them. But at a point, we always get to a point where, again, if it's somebody that we've offered, maybe a month or 2 months and they haven't made a decision, then that kind of puts us in a situation where we have to be like, okay, well, if we don't get you, we may miss out on the next kid behind you. And so I have those conversations with the recruits and try to be as transparent as I can. And that's kind of that's how I operate in general with my team, especially too. It's just be upfront as much as we can in the process. And I get that it can be stressful. And again, I try to educate the recruit, and help them, no matter what it is, and try to be there and help them along the way, even if they don't choose CNU, that they're choosing the best fit for themselves. Because, that's just kind of how I operate.
Yeah. So Julianne, you're kind of in a I don't know, a difficult situation, having come from a D3 to a D1 school, and obviously recruiting starts pretty early on the women's side. And so, maybe talk about some of the challenges that you're facing in trying to get kids to where at is it University of Denver or Denver University? I can never keep that straight in my head.
University.
Okay, University of Denver. I apologize. That's my lack of intelligence, basically. So
It's Denver, but then people call it DU, so it's a little confusing.
right, yeah, that's that. See, I know it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
My dad went to Miami of Ohio, so that was like Miami University of Miami. So I would never keep it straight. But anyway, so like the stuff that you face, D3, D1, and then the early start for the women. Talk about some of those challenges that you're facing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think just in general, like the early landscape, especially just coming from the men's side, where men's process was so much slower and longer, and in that, and so jumping back to the women, but then also D1, where it's like it's even earlier, and just getting on top of those kids as early as you possibly can, and trying to create those relationships. Jamie kind of talked about it, and there is like you want the kid that wants to be a part of your program, and we'll do everything to help with that process. But also, same thing, like I just want what's best for the kid, and if it's not University of Denver, how can I help them find the right place and the right fit? And I think that ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what I care most about. Of course, I want a kid, but at the end of the day, I also really want them to find the fit that they are going to feel like they can be successful at, and that they can continue to grow and develop as a person and as a player, both on and off the field. So I think just navigating that exactly, like Jamie said, you put different timelines on things so you don't potentially lose out on other kids or lose out from other schools, and just trying to balance that, and where's the right timeline of that, right? And I don't know if anyone has the magic answer to that. I'm sure every program goes through that, because you don't know, right? And so if you gamble on one kid, you miss out another, but then you just have no idea where it's going to go. So it's really, how transparent can you be throughout the process to give the player as much information as they need and to make their decision. And I always ask from the kids as well, like, if anything changes, please let us know. Like, we want to know, right? If DU falls out of your top 3, I need to know, right? And so I think there's a lot of being open and honest and transparent in that whole entire process. So it helps both parties, move along in their process.
Jamie, you got anything? I don't want to move on.
I think we think pretty similarly.
Yeah.
And again, the more open and honest, and some advice I would give to like recruits is, when you further along in the process, is asking those tough questions, because you have those relationships now. Like, do you see me playing right away? What does that look like? What does playing look like in the time? Do you see me competing right away? Is it going to take time for me to get on the field? Things like that. And that comes down the line with just, seeing them play, the transparency, and just being open and honest with each other. And I ask the same thing with my recruits. If something changes, because we at CNU, we're very fortunate with, again, the pool of kids we can be selective with. And a lot of them kind of, can be on that tail end of a mid-major school. And so their timeline, I'm working with that timeline, with our timeline. It does get a little tricky a little bit. But things change. Like if they're getting, money from a D1 or whatever it may be, just to let me know what that looks like and where we stand, even with that. So that way I can navigate what the rest of my lists may look like from there.
Right. Julianne, let's back up a little bit and get a little bit of your background. I like to ask that of, kind of everyone's soccer story who comes on here. Jamie's told us like 4 or 5 times, so
I don't have much history. So.
But Julianne is a national title winner as a coach, but she's also a Hall of Famer as a player, which I saw on Instagram. So congratulations on that. I think that's pretty recent, right?
Yes, thank you.
Tell us your soccer story, and
How far back do you want to go?
As you want to go.
Since I've been 5, so it's been a long time. But started playing age 5. Was the only girl on an all boys team for a couple years. So playing with the guys for Park District and stuff for a while, until really there was a girls team. So around like 7, 8 years old, started playing with girls, and then just kind of playing club, playing high school, played collegiately at DePaul University. Was really fortunate enough to head overseas and start playing professionally in Sweden. I left my senior year spring to head overseas. That's because the WUSA had folded. And then, so went overseas, played in Sweden, came back, played in the WPS with Sky Blue, won a national championship with Sky Blue, played in Australia in the off season, got traded to Chicago, played in Chicago with WPS, played a little bit with Western New York and Atlanta Beat. And then unfortunately the WPS folded. So went back over and played in Sweden, and then finished out playing with the Chicago Red Stars in NWSL, and then got into my coaching career.
Cool. What was your recruiting story like? When did you start getting recruited, and what were you thinking? Was DePaul your first choice, and kind of go into that.
Yeah. So actually, I committed, quote unquote, early, which was my senior year fall. So I was like the first one on my club team to commit my senior year fall. So very different to how it is today. But I didn't want to go to DePaul at first. I mean, UNC was like my top school. Every time I see Anson Dorrance, he always tells me that I missed out on winning national championships by not going to UNC. So I gotta love him for that. But yeah, it was like a dream school to go to UNC. U of I, visit Ohio State, and I just fell in love with DePaul, fell in love with the community. And it was like a interesting recruiting process. Like when I chose to go to DePaul, everyone knocked me down. Everyone told me that I would never reach any of my goals. I would never reach my dreams. I wouldn't play professionally. I wouldn't make the national team. I would amount to nothing. So, for me, I cared about my parents being able to watch me play. That was huge for me. My parents dedicated a lot of time to my youth career, like playing and following me around. And, my parents are my biggest supporters. My dad was my number one fan. He never missed anything. And, rain, shine, didn't matter what the weather was. My dad was there. And so I think for me, it was huge to want to stay closer to home. And like I said, I just fell in love with DePaul and the community and what they were trying to build. And I wanted to be a part of a growing program. And so, like I said, of course, not many people supported me by going there. And that for me was, I cared, like I had a will to want to play pro. I had a will to get to where I wanted to go. And I was willing to put my head down and work to get to wherever I wanted to go. And, so those things that people said were motivation, and I was happy. And at the end of the day, it ended up being the best choice for me. My mom got sick and was diagnosed with cancer my freshman year in college, got diagnosed with cancer again my junior year of college, and she ended up passing away. And for me, I was able to be at home a lot with my family and was able to be with my mom during those last years. So for me, it worked out for the best. And, I was able to accomplish and go after my dreams. And so I think for me, like I tell people that all the time, where it's like, yes, an environment, a program, or where you're at and the competition and what you're playing against and people around to push and support you, but also like where there's a will, there's a way, and you want something, like you can go after it. And so I think there's a combination of both of those things happening, to go after things. So that was kind of my recruiting journey, and what got me and brought me out to DePaul.
So, like as you look back, and all those people were telling you, you're making a mistake, basically, is kind of how I'm interpreting it, that you're going to the wrong spot. You're never going to fulfill your potential. I mean, what did that do? Did it make you doubt yourself, or did it just kind of, steal your will that, you're going to prove everyone wrong?
Yeah, I don't ever remember doubting myself. I think it was just more of like, I just knew inside and had that belief of what I wanted to go after. And I was willing to do anything and everything to make that happen. It was going to be long hours on the field or extra training wherever I went, like I was willing to put in that work and wanting to put in that work to go do that. And, I think that's just, kind of how I approached it of going after that stuff. I was surrounded by unbelievable people at DePaul, that supported and believed in that dream right there with me. Right. And I think sometimes that's also part of it, right? Like I had coaches or teammates and people surrounding me that also believed that I could go after that. And they helped me, get there. They helped me build that resilient and stuff to train and to be in those positions to better myself. So I think that's the other part of it as well, is like being surrounded by other people that believe in that dream for you to go after as well.
Right. And I'm sure no one at DePaul was telling you made a mistake. So, once you were kind of in there, you were good to go probably. And your family was supportive of it, I'm sure. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, tell Anson to bugger off, I guess, you know.
No, I love Anson. We chat about it all the time. I just think it's funny that he remembers me. Like so many years ago. So I love every time I see him, just high five and say hello. And, we just have that fun banter with it. I mean, like I said, Anson's unbelievable. Would I have been happy playing at UNC? Absolutely. I would have loved it, So I can't, say that. Some of my best friends came out of you playing at UNC. So yeah, I think that, would have been pretty awesome as well to play for him, be legendary in that way.
I was just in their stadium like 6 weeks ago, I guess, and just all of the women's titles. It's incredible.
Yeah,
quite an accomplishment that dude's down there. So so talk about kind of maybe how that mentality helped you go into the pros and stay in the pros for a while.
I definitely think it helped a lot, and I think too, my generation of players, my generation of players, like we had to fight through. I mean, we didn't play in WUSA, but we were around, and we were hoping to play in WUSA when we were in college. So to kind of go through seeing those 3 leagues and, obviously live through 2 of them with playing in the WPS and the NWSL, I think just that grit and resilience, like I trained on end for 2 years wondering if the WPS was ever going to come around. Like I played professionally in Sweden. I came back. I played on any team to stay quote unquote pro, getting paid $200, $300 a game, or what can I do, and odd end jobs. And again, fortunate for a family that, supported me until I was 25, 26, until, started making money playing pro. And by making money, I used that loosely for the first couple of years. So like, I think that, that resilient of just, I was willing to do anything and everything. Like I said, I went anywhere, I slept on any couch, I did whatever I need to do to just live out that dream of playing professionally here in the States. And so, there's a lot of my peers, like we laugh about those days where we were the ones that were washing the uniforms. We were the ones that were cleaning the locker rooms. Like we were the ones out there just fighting, training, hoping that the league would come back without knowing if it really was going to for some of those, those times. So I think it just kind of built a different resiliency. And again, I think just that pure love for the game and really wanting to, see hopefully my dream come true of playing pro here.
Right. So what was the culture like for women's soccer? Was it kind of embraced, or, what was that experience like in playing in a foreign country where, I'm assuming it was kind of secondary to the men's soccer game and that sort of thing. So what was that like? And, did it create an even bigger chip on your shoulder? That kind of thing.
Well, it's interesting because I was actually just telling someone else about this the other day. We were kind of just laughing about playing overseas and like the culture that soccer is in the other countries. Like I remember specifically being in Sweden and walking by a store, and there was a poster of our team hanging in the window, like down this main street. And it's like, yeah, because soccer is their sport, and like they will support men, women, whatever. And because that was different than here in the States, like you're not walking down the street and seeing posters of, the pro teams and different things like that. So I think that was just really cool to be a part of, playing soccer in another country where it's like, it's what they do, and it's what they live by and what they support. So I thought that was really cool in the terms of like how they did support women's soccer already, but I felt that over there, even before here. And I mean, where women's soccer is now today is phenomenal. It's, it's amazing that it's continuing to grow and stuff. So really excited about that, that change and that movement.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite stories from playing as a professional, and, maybe what you kind of learned from playing as a professional and that you're applying to, not soccer wise, but just kind of like life lesson wise that you apply now to your coaching?
Yeah. I mean, favorite memories, I mean, there's so many of them that I can talk about, but honestly, I think the thing that I miss the most and my most fond memories are just being with teammates, like being in the locker room, being on buses. I mean, we didn't have cell phones, so we talked, we played games, we watched movies and laughed about the same dumb movie that was being played on the VHS monitors of the bus. Like it was different, obviously. But just those memories and the banter in the locker room and the pranks and the jokes and all the dumb stuff that we did, like, it's just, I miss that camaraderie and like being part of a team in that way. Of course you remember great wins or you remember some losses, like you remember that, but like I could ramble off more memories that happened in a locker room or team bonding or different functions than, potential wins or losses and stuff like that. So I think just like the overall memories that you have and make with your teammates is pretty cool. And I think just overall, like the lessons, like I use this now, like that champion mindset, like just how to be a champion of life, like there are days where like you're hurting or you're tired, like, you're tired or whatever it is. And just what you push through and how you support each other and how you look out for one another. And you're like a teammate for life and, how you approach things. And at times, like things don't go your way. And how do you react to that? And how do you, move forward with that? And like how to control the things that you can control. And what does a positive attitude mean and a work ethic and, the accountability, your dedication, like all of those things, the sacrifices, right? Like you make a lot of sacrifices as a player where you miss out on a lot of things, and you make a lot of sacrifices as a coach as well to be in this industry. And so it's like, I think just like that, those life things or those life lessons that happen, again, wins and losses, they can teach you a lot. And, how to win and be humble and how to lose and be hungry and want to go after it more, right? Like there's a lot of lessons that you can learn and so many positives, negatives, and like how to have a growth mindset, how to work through adversity, how to communicate with others. Like I could go on about like all these life lessons that you learn being an athlete, but all that same stuff relates to being a coach or being in these environments. And, I say to myself now, like I know I hated it. I shouldn't say probably hated it. Like I didn't like it at the time that like I was left off of rosters or didn't get to play in games or that had to go through some serious injuries and stuff like that. Like they were hard in the moment. They were hard. But now I'm so thankful I went through them. I'm so thankful I went through them because I learned so much through all of those moments. And I know what it feels like to be left off teams or not play a lot of minutes or play a lot of minutes or be sidelined for 7-8 months coming back from an injury. And it's like, yeah, there were difficult times in that moment, but to have them now and to look back and like see the growth that I had as a player and now as a coach, that like I'm thankful for them, so I think there's just a lot of lessons, and it's about what you want to see, how you want to see it, and how you want to move forward from it. I think that's probably the bigger part of it, right? You can let it affect you and hold you back, or you can persevere and move forward and be better for it. Like I think that's just how you want to approach it and your attitude as you move forward with it.
Yeah. When you said teammates for life, I was going to bring it back to recruiting a little bit here. And just, some of the stuff you guys were saying before and just really being sure that you find the right place and that it's a good fit culturally, so that you end up with those teammates for life. You don't want to be with people that don't fit into who you are, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying, I don't know. It's just a feeling you get, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I chose Methodist when I went on my visit was the team, and the guys that played there, and I'm still like best friends with them. Mm-hmm. So like my buddy's staying the night at the house tonight because he's working down here. So it's just like, I just have those connections for life now. And again, it's not the wins and losses. It's just the relationships that you've created and formed through those 4 years that you're there together. So yeah, no, there's a lot to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing that I was thinking while you were talking, Julianne, was, those lessons, you came in and you won a national championship with a men's team, at University of Chicago. So, I'm sure you've done about 103 interviews, if not more, about that, experience. And, people can go find that. But, you know, I don't know if this is a unique question or not, but like all those things you were just talking about, it doesn't matter like what gender or who you are, like all those lessons still apply, no matter what. And, how did you kind of ingrain that into your team last year? I mean, it was last year. How did you get them to buy in a short time and go on to have the success that they did?
I don't really know, but I mean, like, I know Jamie and I have talked about conversations of this too. So I think it would be great to get his perspective of this as well, and to talk like it's, I think too, it's, and I say this because I feel like I know this from the conversations I've had with Jamie, is just like, one thing that I felt like for myself, like going in, is like I was coaching athletes. Like I wanted to coach athletes, regardless, male, female, doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter the level. Like you're coaching athletes to be at the best that they can be, both on and off the field, right? And like, how do you inspire them, motivate them, push them, nurture them? I don't know. Like some days you need to nurture them or have empathy, like sympathy for them. Like there's just so many different things that go into that. And I think like one of the biggest things too is like being authentic to yourself. I think that was one of the things for me, like going into that environment. It was like, I'm just going to be authentic and do what I can and be who I am and bring this champion mindset in here. And like, this is something I've lived by as a player and have that. And so I think too, like doing that. And I think, Jamie talks a lot about relationships as well. And I know that like relationships and culture and building that and finding the right fit is really important for both of us in our programs. And so when you are authentic to yourself and having that, you allow a space for others to be authentic about themselves as well and create a space that, you're inclusive to everyone. And I know that that's, sorry if I'm speaking for you, Jamie, but I'm pretty sure that that's important in the conversation we've had. So
we have
that on as well, because I think it is, like living within your values and living within like your truth or your authentic self, to create that environment for others to be a part of and stuff as well.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that carries into the team. They see that. And then they're like, this is who this person is. It's not a front. It's not, again, I make mistakes. And again, I own up to them and I apologize. I take responsibility for my actions. And again, that shows, again, the vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And then now there's trust that's formed. And so I think, again, these values that Julianne was talking about, again, I think we're pretty similar. I'm a person that, again, I find ways to figure out whatever to the solution. If there's a problem, okay, well, where can I get, how can I get to the solution without this other area, or in controlling what you can control? And again, being real and, showing your true colors to your team. And I think that it doesn't matter gender either, because I coach a USL2 team too over the summer. And so the same thing, making those relationships with those players, it just builds a deeper connection, and you can be harder on them too in those moments. You can tell them when they're not playing well, and it won't be like, well, he's just out to get me. He'd be like, okay, well, that's reality check, or / tell them when they're playing well. And again, there's credit to that, and don't just, tell them over and over again, because then that loses value. So when somebody's doing well, I let them know. If they're doing poorly, it's like, okay, well, how do we fix this and get you back on track? And again, I think a lot of that comes through, again, the relationship aspect of this, because I think our game is just completely different than a lot of other sports. You have 10 other teammates out there with you. There's a lot of trust that you have to have in each other. And so how do you get the best out of each one? And sometimes it's different with, coaching them in, again, different ways, but that again comes through knowing who that person is and what motivates them, what triggers them, what again gets the best out of them. And that comes with knowing them as a person. So I'll have meetings with my players. I don't even start talking soccer. I literally ask them how the day is going, how's their family, whatever it may be, if they have animals, pets, things like that. It's like, how's your dog or whatever? Have you seen your dog recently? Just to know more about them as a person, and then kind of go into navigating what the conversation may be for soccer. Again, that's who I am, and it's done really well. So again, I'm not going to change that. And again, I think that just builds those relationships.
Yeah. How do you encourage your players to get to know their teammates and so that they can trust each other? And Jamie, you and we've talked about this, with your sister and a couple of people about like the importance of being vulnerable and all that is probably the cornerstone of building a good team.
Yeah, again, we've talked about this previously on other podcasts, but I think that's the quickest way to make connections is, again, also, showing your true colors. And it's hard. We spend a lot of time during the preseason, we have team meetings and things like that. And we put them through situations. We kind of start them in smaller groups. So people that are a little bit more quiet or reserved to kind of open up, maybe they open up in those little conversations. And then we bring everybody together and kind of open it up to the team. I share, my other coaches on the staff share too. That way, again, it just creates this kind of safe space or this environment where people can really tell their story. And then again, we revisit it throughout the season, but they handle those situations really well, and they're so connected, and it's really cool to see. And again, as Julianne said, the relationships that you formed through those 4 years. Again, I have alumni that come back and just they're all together still, and it's just really cool to see that from kind of the coaches aspect of it too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a lot of it's hard work. I mean, it's not something that's easy and that just comes. You really have to put time into it. You have to make time for it to happen. And it can come in all different ways and doing different team culture, team bonding, different things. Sometimes it happens out on the field in a really hard session where they're struggling and they have to overcome something, right? Or a game, or, like there's a lot of different things that can contribute to helping within that. But I definitely, I agree with James too, just like being vulnerable and being able to share your story, or like when he was talking about like you messed up, like, yeah, putting your hand up first and being like, I messed up. It's just, I think, again, creating that space too of showing them like mistakes are going to happen. You're going to mess up. How do we move on from that? Right. And I think that there's just so many different ways that you can start to create those relationships and build on those relationships. But again, it takes time, it takes effort. You need to make sure you're dedicating that time and stuff into it. It doesn't happen overnight either.
No, it does not.
Well, and that's the big challenge, right? Is, you guys get a team that reports at the beginning of August or whatever it is, and, you're playing games 2 weeks later, 10 days later, how do you kind of microwave that in a way that is productive and authentic?
I really think part of it comes with the recruiting process. Mm-hmm. Getting people that connect on the same level as, again, the coaching staff. And then, they come and visit and things like that. I ask my players when we have recruits on campus what they think of the recruit, because, I want their input. Are they going to be a good fit? Or are they like hesitant? Then I'll do more digging kind of thing to see what's going on. But I think that's where it starts. And then again, being with the program for a couple of years, again, it becomes more natural because the way we kind of talk about, team culture is the upperclassmen are the leaders, no matter if you're a captain or not. They form the way, and the freshmen and sophomores, they're going to follow. So by them showing and being more open right from the get-go, they're like the underclassmen are going to be like, okay, this is how this kind of works. And again, that lets them be a little bit, again, more open to start quicker. I mean, for Division III, we have 4 days. So like our preseason is nothing. Like it just happens so fast. So again, for us, it is a task. And again, we continue to keep working on it throughout the season. There's hiccups here and there. But again, a lot of our foundation's built on, we say family a lot, but again, that's the love, support, and respect that we talk about and how that works. You're never going to agree with everyone on the team, but that foundation of support and respect and love are the kind of the three things we talk about with that. But yeah, it's tough. It takes a lot of time, effort. And again, the more years you're kind of in it with one program, the easier, or I wouldn't say easier, but it's more maybe smoother. It kind of varies per year, but yeah, you just have the kids that have been, in it already that can help kind of navigate with the younger ones.
Julianne, you talked about your personal experience, like when your mom was sick when you were in college. Talk about how your relationships with your teammates kind of helped you through that. And I guess it would be your objective to create the same environment in your teams now, so that if someone had something like that happen, that they would feel, that they were with their family, with their teammates / family,
Yeah.
So talk about that experience.
Yeah. I mean, I really just remember, I was just kind of talking about this, being back at DePaul with the Hall of Fame stuff as I cried through my whole speech of everything, because it was like just in general, like the athletic department that had really like stepped up for my family and was there, and just the amount of love and support that they showed us during that time and after. It wasn't like, oh, it just happened and then it was over, just like really that support that happened throughout, for that time that I was there. Overall, the athletic department, but yes, I mean, the team, we had great team chemistry and team culture, right? I mean, I also contribute to, we won conference my sophomore year, and it was the first time ever in school history. And I mean, like, we were a very good team, but also like the cohesiveness that we had, like we were willing to run through a brick wall for anyone. And I think, again, like, it's just those bonding moments and what you experience that like you become family, and you feel for each other, and you want to be there for each other, and you support each other through that. So I think I was really fortunate that I had not just my team, but I had a full athletic department that really supported me during those times, and that, showed love to myself and my family during those difficult times.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, I guess in a bad situation, it's nice to have that kind of support system with you. Mm-hmm. So, all right, so let's turn it back to recruiting. And you guys are in the throes of it. And so how does someone who's going to be at an event that you're going to be at walk me through what they should be doing? And, if someone wants to come play at University of Denver, how do they differentiate themselves and make themselves stand out for you, Julianne? And then Jamie, you can go after that.
Well, definitely reaching out to the staff prior to the tournament, in an email. I understand that kids might be sending mass emails, but I really think making emails personable matters, especially if it's a top school that you want to go to, right? So if Christopher Newport is in my top 5 or top 10, I'm researching the school prior. I'm, making sure that I have all the coaches' names and, just doing your due diligence in that way. Why do you want to go to that school, right? Like, I think too, it's important when I read an email and I'm like, oh, cool, they really want to come because they love our business school, or we have this program that sets ourselves apart from other schools. So I do think if it's one of your top 10 schools, really making it personable with what you say to the coach, add in some reasons why you want to attend that school, your position, your schedule, your jersey number, and I'd put that stuff all in the subject line. Julianne Sitch, number 38, blah, blah, blah. I played this position, right? Like, make it as easy for us to put that information into our schedule so we can watch you play. So putting that information in there, making it personal. And I would just say, not even before a tournament or what you're doing, but every time you reach out to a coach, especially when you reach out in the fall season, check at their schedule. What have they done? How's their record going? Who do they have coming up next? Like it shows us that you're interested. It shows us that, DU is a place that you really want to be at. So like the more you can make it personal, that helps, right? I now remember those things. Or if you're a player that, wears a neon pink headband, like label that, like, say that. So it's easy for us to identify you. And then I would say, like, in terms of watching players, like I just like overall like work ethic and competitiveness in a game, how you talk to your teammates, how you treat your teammates, just like the overall, like, do you want to be there and are you competing? And I want competitors. I want people that want to win, and what are they willing to do to win? So separating yourself apart from others and play to your strengths, show us why you're a good player. And I watch those little things, when your teammate scores a goal, do you go celebrate with them or do you immediately walk back to half? I'm looking at those things, right? Like I want people that want to celebrate other people's success and their teammates' success. So, like those little details and stuff, go a long way, at least for us.
Yeah, completely agree. We just had an event down in Tennessee. One of the players reached out to me and she watched, I think, our game against in the Sweet 16 game or Elite 8 or something like that. And she writes in her kind of line, she's like, I watched your match. I'm the same size as your left back, which our left back, she's like 5'2", but just a warrior. And I said, okay. So then I went and watched her. Sure enough, similar size, and again, just kind of had that athleticism too. So it was good. So that just sparks the conversation and shows that you've, first of all, care. You've done your homework, and you really see yourself at CNU. So again, being personable in those emails as well, and again, researching like how the season's going. Congratulations, you won the conference tournament or whatever, or great win last night against so-and-so. Those things really carry weight, rather than just a blanket saying, hey, come watch me play. Here's my schedule kind of thing, So, and that again comes in the process too of us like looking through it and going through it from there. So, yeah.
One of the things that I've heard a lot of is like kids saying, my coach didn't play me at the position that I feel like I'm best at in a showcase or something like that. I'm a left back, but I was playing striker or something silly like that. How do you guys address that? How do you guys feel about that? How would you advise kids to handle those situations?
You want me to go first?
Sure, go for it.
Because I kind of just had this happen.
Okay.
It's kind of another story from the weekend, because there's local kids who I, coached growing up when they were little itty bitties, and they were playing this weekend, and one of the players was playing a different position. I'm all for them playing different positions. I personally can tell, again, like kind of the intangibles of like a player. Like, are they working hard? Are they trying to compete, doing whatever they can in that role, that whatever position they're in? Again, they may not be that comfortable in it, but are they working as hard as they can? Again, are they giving their team the best chance to win? Are they encouraging others to kind of come along with them? I think in the long run, it will help them kind of give it just this growth mindset that you're not just stuck in this one position. Because a lot of the times you get to the college level, the coach may move you to a different position anyways, based off of the strengths you have / what formation they may play. And that's a question recruits should ask kind of down the line as well, just to make sure they're comfortable with that. Because we here at CNU, we've moved a couple players here and there, but usually after their first year, just again to give them a chance in those positions, but maybe they can be more successful somewhere else, which they did. But yeah, I think those are excuses, to be fair. that, again, I didn't get to play in this position. I think coaches can tell if you have these intangibles, and then, go from there kind of thing.
Good job, Jamie.
Nothing to add, Julianne?
No, I mean, I think it's true. If I'm going to watch a player and they get moved to a different spot, but they're choosing to like potentially not work hard or make the most of it, I mean, that tells me a lot, so I think it's, like being versatile is not a negative thing. Being versatile can be a very positive thing. And I agree, like you might get to school and you might change the formation or you might move people around and do that, so I think it's being open and about still like Jamie said, like the tangibles, if I can see that player, like, oh yeah, great, they have some great, athletic attributes, they're technical, they can do this, I can see why they play in both positions or why, you can kind of help within that. So I do think that going in and giving it your all and doing everything you can in that position, even if it's not like where you may feel your best, it's okay. Still being able to go in and do everything that you can is important for coaches to see.
Yeah. I mean, it's still an opportunity, right? I mean, it's to showcase who you are, not just how you are as a player, right?
Yeah.
It's all about your mindset, I guess. Champion's mindset, right? So, all right. So the event happens, and should they expect to walk off the field and talk to a coach? What should be their expectations at the event? Julianne, Jamie went first last time.
I mean, I don't know. I think just having open expectations about things, like I mean, you can obviously every division has different rules of when you can talk to players or not talk to players and stuff, a little bit of that, or depending where they fall or if they're committed or different things, right? So I think understanding and respecting the fact that coaches, follow rules and, and have that as well. But I do think just the expectation that, yeah, you might get some people reaching out that day after you're done with your competition. You might get some people reaching out after the weekend. You might get some coaches reaching out like that whole entire week. So I think just like being open-minded about when, potentially those conversations come. They can come at any time, and so I think just being open-ended about that.
Yeah, and I think that comes with the timeline too. Maybe you've seen a recruit, whatever, 3 or 4 times, you've had X amount of phone calls. So maybe that's the appropriate time to have an in-person conversation. Maybe they've been to a visit or whatever. So again, but if it's like brand new recruit, you probably won't get, communicated till, after the event or something like that kind of thing. So I think it's different per where you're at in the process. If you're early in the process, the expectation is probably just after the event. If it's a little further along in the process, potentially during the event, correspondence or a committed player. Again, it's always great to see those players and get to communicate with them kind of during the event too.
Right. And so what should their game plan be? Game plan / timeline after the event. So, maybe they don't hear back from you guys. What should they do to reach out? And then, what do they do going forward? How do they know if you guys are interested and all that good stuff? Jamie.
Yeah, again, we're going through it now. So some recruits have reached out now. Again, just be a little patient because, again, we've like this weekend, we were out at the field from 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. because of the weather and the schedule that they ended up changing. So again, long days, traveling back. So just be patient with kind of the correspondence from the coaches. Sometimes we may need to see the player again. Again, I'll be transparent with them. Again, that's the information I'll give them. If it's a player that I don't think maybe could play here, I'll be like, you may want to look at a different direction kind of thing, and just be upfront with them. I try to correspond. If somebody emails me, I try to respond back to them just because, again, that's their time that they've given to me. So I feel like that's the right thing to do. And again, if it's a kid that we really want, fantastic. If it's a kid that, maybe not as high on our list, I kind of let them know that too. Or if it's a kid that we need to see play again, that's kind of the information I'll give them as well. So again, I try to be as honest and transparent as I can, no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's correct. I mean, there's not much to add to that. I mean, it is, I try to reach out to, everyone that reaches out to us, or, the kids that will reach out and ask like for feedback, or where we find them, where do we see them fitting in our program? We always try to reach out. And I do think there's that being patient part. And I'm always okay with a follow-up. If I haven't responded to a kid, just like following up and just saying like, hey, per my previous email, just wondering where I fit, right? And I do think that, you just try to help them out and be transparent with them. Yeah, there are some times where we need to see players again, or 2-3 times before we can give them that clear answer of where they fall, within the program. So, and I think every program kind of goes about it differently with, your top pool, middle pool, pool of players that you're at. So, the same way that the players are making their top their top as well. So I do think just having that communication, they can follow up for sure.
Right. And so what class is, so here we are in 2023 towards the end. So what class are you have you wrapped up your 24s, Julianne, or are you still working on 24s, or, kind of just give us where you are status wise within that framework?
24s are done unless we'll have like a late ad. And then 25s moving along. I can't give away all my secrets, I don't know who's listening.
Well, no. Jamie's listening right now.
I know, exactly.
We compete for
no,
kids.
we're
Denver and Virginia. That's really competing there.
Yes, exactly. But no, like yeah, I mean moving along in 25s and making moves and offers and visits and compiling all of our the 26s that will be looking to talk to on June 15th.
Yeah. And the reason I ask that is because I get that question all the time. Like, is it too late? Should I be worried? Where do if a coach hasn't talked to me and I'm a 24, Jamie, maybe you can talk about from a defense perspective, what's late and what's not. And
yeah, I mean, we're looking for one more 24. Just to fill the class out kind of thing. But we're starting to hit the 25s pretty hard right now. So, and I think it just varies per program in school. Some still need 24s. There's a school out there that, will need 24s. Some may be pretty far along in their 25s. And that's just the nature of it and what your university can provide and offer. So again, we're kind of in this, I don't know, interesting place because we've heard Division III. I think we're kind of more in the more accelerated end of things for the classes, just because again what we can offer as a university and a program. So I think everybody's timeline's different. For us, a 24 that pops on the list, it may be really tight for you to get in. But again, I'll let them know that. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So usually I want to wrap I would like to wrap my 25s up or be basically done with that class come the end of summer of next year. So to kind of give you an idea of the timeline from there. And then, start with the, getting more further along with the 26s. That just sounds crazy to me, but that's
very crazy to think about how fast it moves. And I mean, yeah, we're on a little bit of a different timeline. Like we'd like to be done with our 25s within the next couple of months.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, again, it is like everyone is different, and there's a lot of schools that are looking for 24s, or like the transfer window plays a whole different role into things now as well. So there's still schools that are looking for 24s, or and there's different timelines for schools at their 25s and stuff, so I think it's again about being able to kind of put yourself out there and see what's still available and what you can do. But I do think that there's still a lot of schools that are looking for a lot of different things,
right? As opposed to your counterpart, Jamie, your men's team counterpart, who has no 24s yet.
Yeah, he told me that today.
So
I was like, all right, man.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know. That's just the nature of the difference between the men's and the women's. Which,
I don't know where this started. It's always kind of been like this since I got involved about 12 years ago. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I think females know exactly what they want, though. It seems like they have more of an idea of what they want.
they're much smarter.
Yeah,
it's so much smarter. No, but it is true. I mean, that was one of the biggest differences, being on the men's and women's side is like, I mean, the women's side recruiting moves so much faster and quicker than on the guy side.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel like I was at a different space too. And I mean, like being at CNU, like those kids that you're getting at U Chicago know earlier, they're going through, going to do pre-read, they're, going to early admit or early action and stuff like that. So you do move a little bit quicker in those situations.
Yeah, I just had Phil Croft on, and he was saying he's already done with his 24s. So he's talking 25s now. So yeah, the academics makes a huge difference.
You move differently in that way. So
yeah. So I mean, like, when did you worked in the women's program too? I mean, when did that, was it even a year earlier, or was it the same timeline as like Jamie's on now?
It's the same timeline that Jamie's on now.
Okay.
Yeah, I would imagine the higher academic schools would be on a pretty similar timeline that we're on.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to be done with everything by the end of their school year, right before the summer, if not picking up. I mean, most of your class was done, and then you're kind of filling out the last spots in that.
Yeah. So where do we leave off? We're kind of communicating afterwards. I'm just trying to think of all the steps that may happen, and so now, like, they've moved into meaningful communication with you guys. Jamie, you mentioned earlier, like, this is the time to start asking tougher questions and getting, like, kind of, paint a picture of what your experience will be like. And so, Julianne, what, like, in your mind, what's a good question that a kid who's, sitting in your office now, a young woman, I shouldn't say kid. I mean, at this point, they're, so what are some of the things that kind of impress you as questions, and what are some of the things that, say, you might want to ask a better question, kind of situation?
I mean, I think in general, like your coaching philosophy or that stuff, but like I had a player recently ask me, why do I coach and what do I love most about it? And I thought it was awesome. Like it's like asking your style of play or coaching philosophy and stuff, like it's great, right? You want to know those things culturally and all that stuff, but like, just to have them ask, like, why do you coach? And like, what do you love about it? What's your favorite thing about it? And I was like, whoa, took me back for a time. I was like, I love this, and so I think too, like, I like to ask questions to get to know them, like about them. Like, what do you like to do for fun? Like, what does your family do for fun? Like, what do you like to do with your friend? Like, I don't know, just trying to ask, like, if you didn't play soccer, what other sport would you play? Or like, what would you like to be involved in? Just to like get to know them. So it was like a really great question to just kind of get to know me in a different way. And so I thought that was like really cool and unique, and it sparked conversation, and it went somewhere. So I thought it was cool outside of just the other questions. So I think too, just kind of like outside of the box, or had a kid who was like, oh, I saw you did an Ironman, tell me about it. Like, what was your training? My dad did an Ironman. And like, so again, I think too, like that connection, like something where you see something about that person that's like a connector, or a topic that you guys can kind of like go off of, I think is also like really cool to kind of get into, because it just leads the conversation in a different way.
Right. Jamie, got anything?
Yeah, again, there's out of the box questions. I always enjoy those too.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, that's a great question because you don't hear them that often. Somebody asked me like, why do I coach at CNU? What's so great about CNU? Perfect. Like sometimes again, that gives you just an insight. It's a different way to ask, like what makes CNU great kind of thing. And that leads me into so many different avenues because I'm from Newport News too. So again, my family's here. So there's a lot of ties that I have here that, helps me want to keep this job kind of thing. But yeah, there's a handful of general questions that most of the recruits ask. It's always good to get something different too out there, just to maybe about your personal life or something. Again, just be again the Iron Man thing. Like she probably saw that on Instagram or something, and just was like, okay, what does that look like? So yeah,
Yeah. And it's like the recruit's opportunity to get to know you guys, but it's also like for you guys to really get to know them as people, not just as soccer players. So it's really good. And so like, what would the factors be that you guys would advise players to look into, when they're on campus, when they're doing their homework, when they're hanging out with players? What are some of the things that you would encourage them to look for when they're in those situations? Julianne?
So when they're just on their visit, like asking, like
Yeah.
I always try to have the kids, like the players, take advantage of the opportunity that you have alone with the players. Like ask them questions, like what is it like to be a student athlete here? What are trainings like? What is the environment like? What is the culture like? What are the goals of the program? Right? Like ask the players, and like obviously ask the coaches that as well. But I think too, like you have an opportunity to be quote unquote alone with players on the team or potentially other student athletes if they're around. Like ask them those questions. Ask what it looks like to be a student athlete here. What are the resources? What do you love about being here? What makes you happy about being here? And so I think just really taking advantage of those that time to ask even hard questions, right? Like ask some hard questions to them too. So I think it's just good to kind of you don't want to leave campus being like, oh, I wish I would have asked that. Like ask it. And I think too, like picture yourself hanging out in this cafeteria. Like, do you see yourself here on campus? Like, do you see yourself in the weight room? Do you see yourself on the field? Do you see yourself interacting with the team and stuff? So I think too, like, putting yourself out there to really interact with everyone to make the most of the visit.
Jamie, anything else to add on to that?
yeah, just ask how the coaches are too.
Yeah.
Because the players are gonna give you the honest truth. Like
Right.
that's what I would suggest too, and encourage. I encourage the recruits to ask my players when they go hang out with them. Like, yeah, ask them about us. What is training like? Again, how do they, communicate in training? Those kind of questions as well.
If you had to choose between watching a training session or watching a match, which one gives you a better indication of how the coach coaches?
Training.
Yeah, training for sure.
Yeah. And like, can you picture yourself being coached by that player or by that coach?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes in our visits we have them come watch training and stuff like that, so they get the inside of that too.
Yeah, because everyone has a different style, right? So, what did I miss? Offer. So you go through all this and you get that call, that email, however it happens, and you get an offer. Like, how do you make sure that it's something that you want to do, that it's something that you should accept? I mean, Julianne, you talk about timelines. If you're not comfortable, how do you advise a player to handle that and, walk through that process?
Yeah, I again, like I want to make sure that the athlete wants to come here. So really having those conversations. If I have to get to a spot where I'm going to have to make a timeline, having those conversations with them earlier and then touching base. So I'm not calling them on a Wednesday and telling them I need a decision on Friday. And they're like, what is this? So, like, I think really trying to be open with them. And, I don't have a timeline. However, if I get to a point where I'm going to need to start, I will let you know in advance. I will have those conversations with you. What else do you need to know to help make your decision about DU? Is there anything that's, a reservation about DU that I can help answer for you? So really trying to again help them in that process, because you want a player that wants to be here and wants to be a part of what you're building. So I think that's one of the biggest things, is just trying to be as transparent as you can in that process. And I'm just trying to understand that we might have to get to this timeline and this is what it's going to look like. And, I'm going to need to know in advance, and I'll continue to communicate that with you.
Jamie, you don't do comments, but
it's kind of the same. Like, but we don't really have to navigate. So we'll give an offer again. Typically, when I offer a player, I know we're like in their top two, and we've had those phone calls, had those visits. Seen them play a number of times, and they check kind of our boxes, we check their boxes, kind of thing. So when I offer again, usually a couple days before they kind of accept is kind of what typically happens. Just because again, it's just the nature of how it all works out. But the ones that don't take a couple days and then it starts to creep into weeks and whatever that looks like, then it's like, okay, what's going on? Like, you tell me this, and then all of a sudden, you get an offer and you're not ready or whatever. And so we'll have phone calls and again, set that up and like, we still really like you. We really want you. I want you to take your time, but it may get to a point where I may need to put a deadline on this. And then I ask those tough questions. So like, what's your reservation? Like, what is seeing you not offer that you're looking for? Or what can I help with to kind of, again, make you feel comfortable with this in this process? So I try not to put a deadline on it, but sometimes you kind of have to. It's somebody might be dragging their feet or whatever. And then there's, again, I'm open and with what that looks like with them through phone calls and things like that. Usually if somebody's, taking their time, there's something else going on. So then again, having those conversations of what's going on.
Right. Last thing, then I'll let you guys get out of here. So you guys just finished up your seasons, and I'm sure that you had players that, they didn't get the time that they thought they deserved, or things didn't pan out for them during the season that maybe to their expectation, I guess. So talk about like dealing with that, and then like the emotion that you guys feel around it as coaches. I'm sure it's not easy for you guys to say, sorry, I'm not going to use you in the way that maybe you expect, or, there's some emotion attached to it for you guys as well. So maybe just kind of talk about, and this ties into, you get the offer and then you come to school and having these expectations that you're going to set the world on fire, and, maybe it doesn't quite go that way. And just, from both sides, maybe talk about how to handle it. And, you guys know that there's emotion for them, but there's for you as well. Does that make sense? Is there even a question in that? I don't know.
I think it's just a hard thing to navigate. Like, we bring these kids here because we want them to be successful. We want them to play. We want them to find joy and happiness and success. And we want them to continue to grow and develop and be the best that they can. And it's hard. I don't know if there is a question in that or how to navigate. It's hard. It's a tough conversation regardless. I have a tough time with it too, because people told me I wasn't going to amount to anything. And it's like hard to have conversations with kids potentially that aren't playing. And it's like, we bring them here because we want them to play and we want them to find success and we want them to do well. And so, it's about helping them. Like, how else can we help them so that they can find that success, so that they can be happy with their time, their experiences, what they're getting out of it, and how they can grow and develop, right? And so, and it's hard. You have a big team, play 11 players, so many different things can happen throughout a season, and really just navigating all of that. And I don't really know, Jamie.
Yeah. It is tough. Again, you have this bond with, a recruiter, and when they accept the offer and then now player, you spent this time with them, you form these relationships with them. But I think it comes back to, again, being upfront and honest with them and not sugarcoating anything. And, our philosophy here is best player plays, no matter what year you are, and what's going to give this program the best chance to be successful. And ingraining that in the team. So that way, again, the championship mindset, competing every day is like number one. And if you're not willing to do that, you're already behind everybody. So, my door is always open. So if there's a player that isn't happy with what's going on, they can come have a seat in here and we'll talk about it. I do appreciate when players come in and ask, how can I get on the field, rather than like, what am I like, what do I need to, like, basically approaching it in like a way where they want to grow and be better, rather than just saying, you're not playing me because of this. So encouraging the players to do that. And again, being honest with them. If somebody's ahead of them, this is why they're ahead of you, and this is where you need to improve on. Some kids that maybe not getting games, are you doing the extra work outside of practice? If you're not, then when your opportunity comes, are you going to be ready to like take it? And so that's conversations we have with our players too, is again, it's a long season. It's a really tight season too, because you play a lot of games. So somebody may pick up a knock or an injury where it alters what's happening. And if you're that next person in line and you haven't been doing the work and you get called upon and you're not ready, that puts us now in a tough situation where we may have to move somebody else who has been playing into a different position. And that's the nature sometimes. And so, again, the way I approach it is, just honest and truth. And sometimes it's hard information because you do care for these kids, for these players, and you have to tell bad information or, information they may not want to hear, to people you really care about. But again, that comes with having those relationships. That way they know it's coming from a loving and caring place rather than just a one-way street. I'm here to help. Again, I want, them to have the best 4 years of their life. So when they leave this program, they're better people. And, they remember what it was like to be a part of, a successful program and, having those teammates for life. So that's kind of how I operate.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a two-way street though. Like they have to be willing to, grow people, and not just, expect to show
things
up.
To be handed.
So, cool. You guys have anything else? Did I leave anything on the table there that I should have asked?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you so much for coming on, especially Julianne. Jamie, I'm glad that you got your technical things ironed out.
I just had to steal somebody else's computer,
Yeah.
Look, if there's a will, there's a way, right? You
Exactly.
figure it out.
You figured
There
it
you
out. You got
Practicing what you preach. Good job.
There you go.
Hold on, I'm gonna hit stop.